Oh, really?
Pushy, aren't she saying goodbye?
Oh, she's saying goodbye.
No, she wants to talk back, and I'll see you next, a week.
Oh, sure, wait a minute.
Oh, it's okay.
No,
I didn't know class was starting.
that's okay.
And I will.
Thank you, dear.
You need to sit up here.
We're still getting hooked up here with Emily.
Yeah, we're good.
I didn't know who was on, or you.
Right now, just one person is on.
Well, you're gonna handle that, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, Emily has a copy of what I handed out earlier. Shalom, I'm Rabbi Helene Ainbinder. I'm past president of the Interfaith Council. And I just retired from being the spiritual leader of Faith Family. So they're looking for a new rabbi, and I wish them good luck. But I love teaching, and this is an overview. When you see the top, oh gosh, it's from whatever the Hebrew date is, 5784. We're now in 5786, so you might have a different copy. I have a lunar calendar. The Jewish people have a lunar calendar as opposed to the Gregorian calendar, which everybody else in the secular world uses. So I use two calendars. I have to make sure that whatever things are going on, it doesn't fall on my Sabbath or a holiday that, or holy day that we have. And it usually works out well, but we'll go on with it. Now, according to Emily, you wanted to hear the lost books?
No, not the last books. Last week, we covered how the Tanakh and how it came to be. What we don't know is what you are now using.
Oh, gotcha. The Tanakh. It's over 3,000. No. Okay, so what I did is, this is the mitzvot, which are, mitzvot are doing righteous actions, good deeds. We have 613. Most people know the top 10. So, but we have 613, and within each of those divisions, there's volumes to discuss what they actually mean and what you're supposed to be doing to be an all-around good person. And the halacha is Jewish law. Now, the Torah, oh, this is so fun. It's like a show and tell. I can't bring the big Torah, which is like huge. So this is my little Torah. So you could see, well, I could open this one, and this is in English, where usually the Torah I'm going to show you is in Hebrew. That's okay, it's a kid's one. And with children, they walk around, and I figured, let me just show you. Okay, so that's a show and tell of that.
Yeah.
But so the commandments and the Jewish laws, we also, some people, and we just went through Passover. For those of you who know about Passover, the 10 Commandments, Moses goes up to receive at Mount Sinai. I think you know some of that. But everybody says why, how he threw the tablets, or he got angry or whatever. But the bottom line is he first heard it, which is the oral interpretation, and then it was codified or written.
You're talking about Moses?
Moses at the time of Mount Sinai. So we have an oral and we have a written law. So when we have the Torah, we just cannot just change the wording. It's in Hebrew. I'm trying to get one of my pages that's from the Torah. And of course, when you want something, the other thing is, we can't change the wording. We can only interpret it. And throughout the ages, shown. Just do one page. Takes me a while. In a book form. Okay, I didn't make enough pages, but this is part of Exodus. You could take one. This is it's called a Chumash. We have the 5 books of Moses, which we have listed there from Deuteronomy all the way down. So this is Exodus. And when I have it in my Chumash, because I'm not going to take out the big Torah, which I don't want to read. You'll see the Hebrews on one side, and here it has little dots and dashes and punctuation, and the Torah doesn't. Okay, and then it has all the writing on the bottom from different scholars, but Rashi was one of the most famous ones who interpreted. So we, the people who aren't so up there in knowledge, will be able to totally understand word by word or, and if it says somebody else's name, that's another scholar, you might have an E here for somebody else. But this is just a mattering, all the different scholars that might have put in their 2 cents. And the rest is English, as if you were reading this in Hebrew, you would know the English, yes.
So the Hebrew version doesn't have vowels, right?
No, I'm trying, I have my papers and I'm just trying to,
You said it wasn't changed, so wasn't changed by the.
nope, never changed since Moses' time. Uh. Okay, this is not, very frustrating. I usually. never-
So
So
the,
now what happens is,
the rabbi commentary,
the rabbi's
um,
commentaries.
is that defined or can that be added to?
That's always interpreted.
So are there like 21st century
2,000
rabbis?
years we've been interpreting it.
Okay,
So,
and is that the same as the Mishnah?
now, okay. It's good. Mishnah, okay, well, I have it written down, so it's easier, and then I'll show you paperwork. We never changed the Torah and amend the text. Conservative Judaism, just like there's different Christian faiths. Judaism schisms in 1850s. The German Jews wanted to become part of the secular world. They didn't want to wear garb. They wanted to be called up in their language, German, not Hebrew. They didn't want to use Hebrew anymore. So they didn't want to eat kosher, meaning we have to eat correctly, separate meat from dairy and other stuff. They didn't want to do this, that, and the other thing. And the traditionalists, which are the Orthodox, you'll see Rabbi Mendy in town when he does the candle lighting. He's a very traditionalist. In the Orthodox community, there's 17 different sects. You'll see one, I always use the Sitmar, forgive me, but they look like they're from the 1700s. They have pedal pusher pants and white socks, just like the Quaker was at Harmony Day. You were at Harmony Day. Then there's others that one has a black hat with mink, one has a black hat with sable. It designates the different rabbis of the different sects. Some have a crochet black yarmulke, some wears whatever yarmulke or leather you want, and some have long payas, which are the little pearls. That's supposed to bring them faster up to Hashem, to the, okay, the all different groups. So the conservative point of view in the 1850s says, I don't mind doing a few prayers in the native tongue. So if I was living in France, it would be French. Here I'm doing it in English and Hebrew. But we're still going to keep kosher. Men and women are still going to be separated. But over the course of time, we developed and moved forward. Yes, women got rights. Henceforth, I could be a rabbi. But it started with the Reform movement, because one Reform rabbi had only daughters. And the daughters wanted to become a bar mitzvah, which is a son of the, meaning you came of age. And he said, well, I can't do that, but I could do bat mitzvah, a girl. And that threw a schism again. That was in the 1960s. By the time 1980s roll around, Reform were confirming ordination and smecha for women rabbis. It took a little bit longer for cantors, because the cantors sing and the prayers, and to hear a distraction of a woman's voice. Trust me, you don't want to hear my voice. You'd all run out. But you wouldn't be focusing on praying to God. You would say, "Oh, that's a lovely voice." No. Oh, she has such a pretty voice. No. So that's why women can't do that. But Reform said, yes, let's do that. And then it took another 10 years, I would say the latter part of the 1970s, early 80s, women of the conservative movement became rabbis. And then later, they could become cantors. So that's this portion of the traditional, and I said Rashi, and it's all in here, the letters were Rabbi Shlomo ben Isaac, who was born in France in 1040. And I wrote Common Era. Okay, and I write before the Common Era, because Christ and his name means Messiah. We don't believe that Jesus was the Messiah. That's where we schism, just a wee bit.
Do you believe there is a Messiah to come?
Correct. You're
Okay.
waiting for the second coming. We're still waiting. So that's a little of the difference between the Jewish people and the Christians. The Muslims I'm not going into because that's the Quran. And that involves the Jewish interpretations, the Christians' interpretations by first Muhammad, but he dies 2 years later, and then the Caliphate of the Umayyad dynasty changes, and it becomes those anti-Semitic and anti-Christian ideology. So
Now, do all of the Jewish sects that you just mentioned all believe that the Messiah is to come?
Mhm.
Okay,
So we're all on the same page there. We're all on the same page that the Torah shall not be changed. The interpretations are, meaning we didn't have light bulbs. I'll give that as an example. So can we put the lights on Friday night when we're not allowed to create anything because it's the Sabbath? No, because you get a spark. Can't drive a car. It sparks. You're creating something. The other thing is our holidays start at night. That's because what did God have to create? Let there be light. So obviously it was dark. You had to turn on the lights. So we start our holidays at night, and it ends the following night. Our Sabbath starts Friday night when we could see 3 stars in the sky. Now I could just look up the time. And then for the ending of the Sabbath, it ends when we see the 3 stars at night, and we do a Havdalah service to separate the holy from the mundane or the regular days. And that's the same with the Christians. You have your holy Sabbath. So
now you're saying nothing should be changed in the Torah. What about the Nevi'im?
Nevi'im, okay, this is another thing I was gonna go into.
Oh.
You're a little ahead of me, but that's okay. Nevi'im, we have prophets, 21 books of prophets. The Ketuvim are the writings, and the 39 books in the Jewish Bible equals the Tanakh.
Right.
Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim. So we have a belief that God speaks to the prophet or the person who's going to be a prophet or a prophetess, because we do have a prophetess, Deborah. And then it was written what they did. Christianity flips it and says, no, it was written first and then it was going to happen. The prophet will come. So that's the difference between a little of the Jewish thinking and the Christian thinkings. Okay, commentaries. Now we're coming into your realm, and the rest of you. Commentaries are the Mishnah, 200 before the Common Era, and it's codified in 200 in the Common Era. So that's 200 years after the birth of or Jesus, and he dies when he's 32 or 33. 33. Okay. Scholars' discussions, this debates and attempts to understand what does God want of me in the Torah. What does he want from us? So that's that only took them 400 years to figure it out, and we're still commenting on it. I'll show that. Gemara, 200 in the Common Era to 500 in the Common Era. Further discussion, like we didn't have enough. Debate on the Mishnah, codified by Rav Ashi and Ravina, together with the Mishnah and the Gemara. The two of them together creates the Talmud. Oh, God, how many volumes is it? It's well over 30 volumes. It'll take a couple of lifetimes to read through it all.
There's 2 Talmuds, I believe.
There's one when we left Palestine. Back then Israel was called Palestine. To us it was always Israel. But when it became Palestine, we were exited and moved to Babylonia. So you have the Babylonian Talmud and the Palestinian Talmud. The Babylonian Talmud, because a large majority were there, and very few Jews were left in Palestine. There was always Jews in Israel. Definitely in Jerusalem, and the area of Judea and Samaria. Then what happens is we get to go back. We had the destruction of the first temple and the second temple. We were able to build it, rebuild it. So they came back. Not belating one is better than the other, just that the Babylonian Talmud has so much more in it. More information, more discussions, more everything than the Palestinian. Not belating the Palestinian because then you could derive from what that happens. Their volumes.
Was
Just
that? Can I ask a question?
sure.
Was that because of the educational level of the people that were captured and taken to Babylon? Because they took the mostly educated people, right, to Babylon?
You were exited, mass migration.
Okay,
Didn't matter who-
How did some say
Didn't matter who you were, what you were, what level, but one of the rabbis in ancient times said we should read the Torah not once a week, but 3 times a week. Why 3? Monday and Thursday, and of course on Saturday. We don't read it on Friday night. But what happens is, it's when people came to market in Jerusalem, when they brought their goods. They wanted Judaism to survive. So how do you get the farmers? How do you get people who are bringing in their trades? So they did it on Monday, Thursday, and Friday and Saturday. So we had to teachers, rabbis were teachers in those days, and the prophets were the prophets, and they were teaching. But it didn't matter what level of education you were, or how knowledgeable, but the rabbis were well learned, well taught. A lot of the rabbis were doctors. Jesus healed people. He was a knowledgeable man, very brilliant at that time frame, and we were healers. We didn't want to kill people. That we were agriculturalists. We had farms. If you read through the Bible, we took our sheep and flock with us. You know, we knew how to grow things. We knew how to heal. We didn't even throw the leopards into the wilderness to die. We kept them separate. We knew about black mold is deadly. We had, in fact, this week was Mahitza and Cesara, Mahitza. It's about the purification of a woman and a purification of your home, of your bodies, because if a priest went to visit somebody and they had leprosy, you had to go to a mikveh, wash yourself, make sure you were clean enough to go into the holy temple. So that's it in a nutshell about.
So what is the ranking of what's authoritative? Torah, obviously.
Oh, the head of the synagogue.
But in terms of scripture, Torah is first, and then
Torah.
are Nevi'im, the prophets, and the writings as authoritative as Torah?
No. What happens is when we were persecuted, if we took out the Torah to study, we would have been slaughtered. And I taught that at the Lutheran Church about the dreidel game for Passover for Hanukkah. We would see the Romans or the Greeks that were coming to kill us, and we go, no, we're gambling, and we're just gambling, and we take out the dreidels, and of course they took our money and whatever, but at least we weren't slaughtered. So we taught the prophets. The prophets' writings that coincide with a Torah reading, we still do that today. So we read the Torah first, and then we read the prophet that related to that portion of the Torah. Okay, so there we read. It's a Torah service followed by the readings of the prophets.
And where did the writings like Psalms fit in?
Psalms is part of the Gemara, part of the Tanakh in the regard of it's a biblical scriptures, and Psalms become part of it's part of but the Psalms fall into a category where some are part of the Torah, but there's a portion for the Psalms. And Psalms are used at various holidays and various celebrations of festivals. We also have Megillot, the Book of Esther, the Book of Ruth, and then we have others, the Song of Songs, which will be read in another week or two for Shavuot when we receive so each of these books have relations to the Torah. And very good questions, Ellen. I like that. But we have the codes, I'm doing then we have the Mishnah Torah. If we go down, Maimonides or the Rambam, he was born in Spain in 1135, Moses ben Maimon, Greek for the son of Mammon. From the letters of his first name. Okay, the book was written to assist Jews of that time to follow Jewish law correctly by studying the entire Talmud, and brought together a simplified code of laws which are repeating of the oral Torah. So what was translated from the oral becomes Pirkei Avot, the sayings of the forefathers. You probably know, who am I? What am I? What, if not now, when? We always did Hillel over Shammai, but there's other ones that would from this rabbi to that rabbi to this rabbi to that. It's been transed down from oral, and we put it in a codified form of the Avot. And then Shulchan Aruch by Joseph Kara, comments from Moses Isler. These are all famous scholars that are still responding to questions. So what we do today is we say, what happened now? Let's leave. What was said by the forefathers, as in the people who came before us, and the women, of course. But and then we look at where does it relate to the Torah, and where does the Torah relate to and Jewish law. And there's volumes of Jewish law. I'll just give an example. Don't put a stumbling block before a blind person. That's one of the commandments. Well, what does that mean? You're selling a house. You're gonna tell the person the roof's gonna cave in when they buy it? No, you have to tell them, you're gonna need a new roof. You're selling a car. Gee, I hope the guy makes it down the street before it falls apart. Now you have to tell them the transmission is gonna need doing. These are stumbling blocks before blind date. If I'm eating something in someone's house, I'm allergic to a lot of things, but I go, and the first time I came here, there was a small group of Jewish people. They were just happy to get together, 20 little families or whatever. And they picked prayers and they read it in English. Oh, this isn't for me. I'm more traditional, I'm conservative, I do more Hebrew, very little English. And we meet and I go, what's the pink meat next to the cheese? Oh, that's ham and Swiss cheese, Rabbi. Oh, okay. Too form. They don't keep kashrut. Calm yourself, take a deep. Okay, what? Oh, is that tuna salad? No, it's shrimp salad. Oh, okay. I'm allergic to shellfish, but thank you for telling me. And I said, you want me as a rabbi? This gotta go. And then I went back to New York and I figured, oh, I'm getting cataract surgery. Now I can do both. My husband said, no, this is where we're living. You want to go back? Visit family, stay with family and friends. So I said, okay, you want a rabbi? I'll be more than happy to be your rabbi. But here's a few things. And as the congregation grew, more diverse learners. Like you said, did everybody learn the same way? No. I could do a service and I would, as the commute, someone would come up, can you do one of our prayers? And I said, okay, let's see how this flies. So I would do it in Hebrew, and I'm not going to translate it. It's blessed are the matriarchs, the patriarchs and the matriarchs, and a whole bunch of blessings, and everything that's been told to us is true, and whatever. And I said, wow, that went over. Then somebody else comes in, can you do the mourner's Kaddish in Hebrew, not English? I go, yes, let's see how that goes. Wow, that's not bad. Now we're up to 70 families. So to please a diverse learning group, like you said, or how people, I don't consider us religious. Some are more observant than others. Okay, and you have to make it comfortable for everybody who walks through your doors. And Mendy Cohen, he always used to call me, come to my service. I said, but I'm gonna be sitting with the women. Well, yes. I said, well, no. Or we're doing, this. I go, well, I'm gonna be reading the book of Esther too. Oh, you could do that? I said, yes, I'm a rabbi. I could read the parchment and the Megillah. But thank you for inviting me. So, but there's the difference, because I would be able to hear it, but there'll be a mechitza, a division. Not my way of learning, not my comfort zone. So, and then I wrote about the response of, you have the early prophets, Now you have to understand, early prophets tell the history of the people from entry into the promised land with Joshua rather, and to the destruction of Jerusalem more than 500 years later. I gave you the listing. Joshua, if you notice, it's not nepotism. Moses had two sons. He needed a strong man. By the way, Joshua was one of the 12 spies who came back, and Caleb was the other one who said, "Yeah, we could take them," and the other 10, no.
Right.
We needed 10 to have prayer service, not because of the 10 commandments, but because of the 10 spies represented the community.
Oh.
Not the 2, the 10. So the 10 spies, so we need 10 people to pray in the traditional way, men only. My way, women are included. And I don't ask about gender anymore. It gets me very confusing of who's what and what's what. And all the letters, I just don't tell me. But what are you? It's binaries. I haven't figured that one out yet. But if you let me know, let me know. And they do let me know. They're very friendly that way. Then we have the judges. When we didn't have kings at the very beginning. We were tribal people. Today, what you're seeing in the Middle East is still tribal in a lot of areas. Okay, and some of the terminology you'll hear coming out, it's tribal leaders or a head chieftain or something. Jews wanted to be so much like the Christians. We wanted a king. And Hashem said, "Are you serious? All right, they want one. We'll give them Saul." But what happens is, in that interim, the judges judged. Deborah, who I like to name because she's a woman, and she was a prophetess, and also she led the army. She was the leader, and I don't even remember the general's name. I do it on purpose because he should have led the army. She says, "You know what? I'm going to lead the army to victory, and they're not going to remember your name." And she did. Good for her. So, but then you have Samuel 1, Samuel 2, and then you have Kings 1, Kings 2. Then you have the later prophets, the books of the later prophet record the attempts to turn people back to God. No, we forgot who he was. Yes.
So I noticed that Kings is part of the prophets. When I read Kings, it
Mhm.
reads more like a history
Correct.
than, so why would it be grouped with the prophets?
Good point. The prophets were living at the time, and therefore, whatever they were trying to keep the people together, keep Judaism alive. So we wrote about them, and it became part of our history. And we study them, and we study what they said, and then we look at what was going on at the time and what the factions were in the world at that time, or their little world at that time, and who was attacking us, and where are we going to the next step. That kept us. Oh, the world's not coming to the end. God's still going to remember us. God's going to bring us back to the Holy Land. We still believe that. We still believe that. In fact, during the bombing and everything, I said, "Oh my God, they almost hit the Church of the Sepulchre. We never got bombs in Jerusalem." And then it hit Jerusalem again, and it took off some of the siding of the dome. I said, "Oh, that's not good," because they were trying to kill the Jews. And if you were ever, how many were in Jerusalem? Any of you? The four corners of the Armenians were almost persecuted to death, but the Armenians have a history going back to Avraham. So they get a quarter. And the Jewish quarter has the Kotel. Right above the Kotel is the Dome of the Rock. And then if you turn through the mosque's shuk, which leads you right into the Christian quarter, or you could go around that going through the Christian quarter. So we're very close together there, and for them to shoot in, that was bad. But so all this destruction, these prophets were to bring us back to remembering who God was, why we're praying to Him, and to comfort them after the destruction and the exile. So you have Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel. You have a question again or no?
No, I was just nodding my head.
Oh, okay. Okay, I gave you the 12 minor prophets, or the later one. It's not that they're minor in stature, it's because we don't have a lot that they said. the oral translations and it wasn't passed down a lot. So, and one of the ones was Micah. We use him when we throw away our sins or cast away our sins right before, in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, before the holiest day. Yes?
I've read Micah, I've read the Minor Prophet, but Micah was also pertained to just how things are.
Yeah.
I mean, and it doesn't seem to change from that era to this era. Things don't really change that much.
Yeah, but sometimes the interpretations of the words change. And that's okay to interpret differently. Because the Torah is not gonna change. Okay, that's gonna stay the same, but the prophets, they knew everything. Zechariah, I love Zechariah because my son had the bar mitzvah portion for the prophet. He read it. It's one of the long ones. And he stopped in the middle. I said, "Oh no, is he having an asthma attack or what's going on?" But the cantor told him, "Take a deep breath and continue." And I was like, "No," but it's done on Shavuot. Because we received not by might, nor by but by my spirit shall I set you free. Okay, it's not by might, it's by all of us being together as one and praying to him and being one group of people that are loving God and loving each other. And being peaceful. By the way, it's read at Hanukkah. So I said, the rabbi called and I said, "Oh, this is gonna go over big. Ian, Rabbi Gershon wants to know if you want to redo your 4 or 5 pages." He goes, "No." I go, "Okay, no, sorry, Rabbi, you're on your own." But they like to bring back the students, after bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, to redo their portion. It's nice, but there's all these others that we have very little of, but their words are profound. We have the Ketuvim, the writings. Psalms comes from hymns of praises attributed to David, King David.
So you attribute all the Psalms to David?
A majority. Okay.
Just as we do.
What about the sons of Korah and Asaph and all those other songs?
Good.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, okay, Proverbs, you heard of those, wise sayings ascribed to Solomon. Solomon was King David's son. Why did King David not be allowed to build the temple? He had too much blood on his hand. Boy, this is a wise group here. Solomon, by the way, Solomon, you know why he was wise? He married every leader's daughter. So therefore, how could you kill our grandchildren? How could you kill your children? So he was a very peaceful king, so he was able to build the holy temple.
Yeah, but those wives influenced him. And
Of course, behind every man there's a brilliant, beautiful woman.
they did a good job.
Spoiler alert, there's men here.
You come from the corner, right?
Oh, I'm being recorded. Okay, great. I love it. And then there's Job, the faith of Job. A righteous man is tested through suffering. Just who are your friends? Gather good friends around you that you're suffering. You don't want them to throw salt on the wounds here. And then I went into the Megillot, the Song of Songs, Shir HaShirim. These are a poem in praise of love, traditionally ascribed to Solomon. Ruth, the Moabite, shows unselfishness and loyalty by befriending her mother-in-law, Naomi, who here has great mother-in-laws. But I know we all do. But back in those days, she was a Moabite, one of the biggest enemies of the Jewish people. You're going from Moab all the way to Jerusalem?
You were
Pagans. They were, oh my God, they were maybe worse than barbarians, if there's such a thing. And here she says, "No, I'll go with you, Naomi. Your God will be my God. Your people will be my people." She was the first convert. And God gives her the honor of having King David.
Well, she's also the offspring from her. Right, leadership.
No.
The offsprings from that
Lineage.
union.
Yeah.
Okay. Went to David, to further generation to Jesus.
I know. Yeah, she was so pure of heart to do what she did. And I know some people might have remembered, you might be too young, when President Bush was in the Middle East and someone threw a shoe at him.
Mhm.
Everybody laughed. Ooh, that's not to be laughed at. Naomi comes from a very strong, big family with a lot of property. Women didn't have, well, we did fight, there's 2 women in the Torah that fought for their heritage, their, what was owed to them, but they had to marry within the tribe in order to get their money inheritance. So, yay, women. But what happens is the man who was supposed to marry Naomi, not Naomi, Ruth, found, and Naomi told her what God told her to do. Have Ruth lay on the threshing right next to Boaz.
Mm.
Don't wake him, and then come home. But people see you. Okay? And the guy who was supposed to marry, he threw the shoe at her like she was a whore. And Boaz, who was the king or the prince at the time, very noble family, says, "Are you sure you don't want to marry her? Because I'm going to get all the lands of Naomi and everybody." And he says, "She's a whore." He says, "I didn't sleep with her." And he picks up the shoe and marries her. So don't throw your shoes off at somebody. It's very, very insulting and, so, but that's the Naomi Ruth story, but, the Lamentations we have, it's a sad, traditionally believed to have been written by Jeremiah after the destruction of Jerusalem. Ecclesiastes, a Kohelet, maxims and meditations on the meaning of life traditionally attributed to Solomon, and Esther the Purim story. Where could you find a Jew hiding her Jewish identity, marrying a non-Jew? It was all meant to be. Her name is Esther because it's the Persian name. Her name is Hadassah. You probably heard of Hadassah Hospital and all. Okay, and she was with her cousin or Mordecai, who they think might have been the uncle, but they were related. And he raised her, and he says, "You have to do this. And one day you have to rise up, and it's a purpose that you're here." 127 provinces, if you read the book of Esther, that's from Turkey throughout the Middle East that's fighting now, all the way to Jerusalem. That's how many Jews live there, and we're going to be slaughtered. Remember that Europe was not really heard of, the Scandinavian countries, and forget about the New World. That then I have Daniel, which is Daniel's exile in Babylonia, the claims to reveal the future. Ezra and Nehemiah, history of 2 leaders who helped the Jews reestablish life in Eretz Israel and the return from the exile. And then you have Chronicles 1 and Chronicles 2, reviews of history from the beginning of the world to the end of the Babylonian captivity. I have other stuff here, but okay, I don't have to do that. But I wanted to really show you some of the tractate.
We've got about 10 minutes.
I'm watching the clock and I think. Okay, well, yeah, I'm good that way. This is a piece of Talmud. This section portion in the middle, the big writing, I'm gonna pass it around. That's a discussion, okay? One portion of the Talmud. The inner part is from various scholars. The outer part might have been minor scholars, because what happens when you turn a page? You might rub them out. The really smart ones you really want to see. And then the Talmud continues. So I didn't know that to see. Yeah, I know.
Just a minor kind of guy.
Yeah.
The women round in the middle.
Rabbi, how important was the discovery of the
harder to
Dead Sea?
see.
Oh, the Dead Sea Scrolls, shepherd fell through, or one of his sheep, and if you went to the Book of Shrine, I know, and you get to see pieces of parchment. I was able to go in and touch them, and now you can't touch them, and you can't go into the. I worked with the government for a little bit, and then what happens is, if it had a small piece, let's say of Exodus, the same Hebrew writing, the same meanings, the same everything, not changed for 2,000 years. Read that. There's a book of the book. Oh, and there's also When the Stones Speak. Phenomenal book. They uncovered where King Solomon and King David are really buried. It's right on the outside of Jerusalem. And it's phenomenal because there's no animal there. Oh, what a shame. Okay, this is the Tikkun. Okay.
Keep it on.
The two of us will get there. All right, so Tikkun is my book that I have a book. One side, you'll see the lettering with vowels. The other side is how I would see it in the Torah. And the Torah letters are a little different in how they write them. Rashi, because he thought he was going to be killed, did something like Leonardo da Vinci. He inverted letters. And you needed to, well, back then in Da Vinci's time, you needed to hold it up to a mirror. And in Rashi's time, he would write a different alphabet. So he wouldn't be called a heretic and he wouldn't be killed by the Inquisition. So that's the Tikkun. I know I have all my pages all. This is a portion, did I give you the Mishnah? I have, okay, here's another piece of Mishnah. Not that, but this is a small portion of the Mishnah, and then I'm gonna pass around the Gemara. They're just amazing writings. Yeah, I had to learn to read them all. I was digging up stuff, I can't begin to tell you for what age group.
What would you say the education level was of the majority of the Jewish people? Because we talked about United States education level being an 8th grade level. What?
They were agriculturalists. What kind of level did they have? This is more of Gemara. Don't mind description.
Did they all write? Did they all?
Yeah.
No.
And they read?
No, they could read?
No.
That's why you needed.
That's why you needed the rabbis, the priests, the priestly class.
Good.
Women were not taught. Women, the matriarchs were known to be midwives.
Okay.
You'll see that also if you read the story of Dinah. It's one of the shortest chapters of the Torah. Answer me this question: how could a princess, because she came from a Sarah and Leah and all these people, how could she walk into Shem with no bodyguard, nobody accompanying her, and getting raped by the boyfriend? Shem, right? If you read it in Hebrew, this chapter,
I know.
you would have the Hebrew sounds of when I'm reading the Hebrew. Yeah, it's like, well, yeah.
You don't need a vowel. You do need.
No, no, I do have the vowels when I can read it because it's part of the Torah, but when I read it to teach, I got my vowels. But it is the Torah and there's no vowels, but I have to, when you see the Tikkun going around, I had to study how it sounds. There are two people on either side of when I have a Torah out, they're called Rambis. They'll have the Torah, like I had it in a book form. And if I make a mistake, let's say it should be an A sound instead of an F sound, they'll go, you read it wrong. And I have to reread that, that's because it has to be perfect. Because that means I changed the interpretation. I'll give you one, ayin and yayin. One has an aleph, one has the ayin sound, which is the letter ayin.
Sure.
One is, yayin is wine, ayin is to tell a lie. So if you drink too much wine, you tell a lie. So they changed the first letter. But the shorish or the root of the word is still there. It's funny with the Hebrew words. And when I say the last word of our holiest prayer, which is the Shema, I believe in one God, it's echad. And I pronounce the Dalet because if I have a resh, echar, then it means I have another God. Just by one letter. So
You
that's
don't want to mess up.
you don't want to mess up. I don't want the ground to swallow me, But if there's any other questions, I know I did this like in 45 minutes.
Yeah, no, that was great.
I have a question.
Yes.
Did you get called to be a rabbi or how did you become how did you?
I'm writing a book now, which I should be one of these days. The Desert Rabbi, and I have sayings, scrap papers from an octafoil. So if you were in World War II, an octofoil was part of General Patton's team. He was your special ops, Navy SEAL, blah, 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 and he was also a medical officer. So he had 9 Bronze Stars, a Silver Star, 5 Purple Hearts, and he was the agent that Patton and Eisenhower sent to Palestine to see what the Jews, the English and the Arabs were up to. I didn't know he was a doctor. He liberated Bergen-Belsen, and he lost his our whole family there in the concentration camps. So he was a kosher butcher. Now, if you look at the old pictures from the Lower East Side, and there was a kosher butcher and a streetcar guy that was my grandfather, his father, and my great uncles, and the great uncle who married into the family. He was the fruit and vegetable pushcart guy on Hester Street or whatever. But throughout time, I always didn't want to be on the other side of the wall. And my grandfather would read in Yiddish, and I said my father's side of the family, my mother's side of the family were Reform, like the people here. Secular, more Jewish, and I had the ones that were, you came here early, and my father said, tell Grandma you walked really fast. It was pouring rain, and I guess we took the car on right before the Sabbath was over. We walked very fast, Grandma. My grandfather was going, My grandmother gave my father the look like, But I wanted to learn. And I had a portion of my life where I had a very sad moment where I lost a child. Didn't breathe. According to Judaism, we don't name and we don't bury. 3 months later, it was my son becoming a bar mitzvah, and less than 3 months later, my mother passed. Massive heart attack, gone. So my husband said, how could I ever make you happy? I said, I want to go back to school. No, I didn't want the jewelry. No, so much Tiffany's and all this stuff. No, I wanted, so I went back to school. But I was at a juncture of time, or I call liminal moments in time, when I went to work. By the way, I was married at 18, which everybody should have been. So I was considered old maid already. But I became a fashion designer. And at that time, if I was married, it was hard to get a job, so I wasn't married. So that was good. Then you could be married and still hold a job. And then if you were pregnant, I don't know if you know this, man, it's contagious. You could get pregnant too.
Oh,
But-
I remember that.
Okay, so you're looking at the woman who helped the class action suit that you can't fire a woman for being pregnant. I went to the World Trade Center. There were one of the women I knew, and I was hiding my pregnancy when I married my husband. The doctor says, you want the baby or you're gonna lose the baby. You gotta start eating. I said, I'll lose my job. I don't wanna lose my pay, And we won the class action suit.
Well.
Yeah. So I'm one of the women that did that. But at that time also, when my children were getting older, the parents, every generation, I think every 10 years changes, some good, some bad. Let's get through this 10 years maybe. But what happens is that they used to go to school, the Jewish children, from secular school to the religious school after dinner, like 7 to 9 o'clock. And the new generation said, no, we want them to go from public school right to the religious school. Well, that's like 4:30. Oh, you gotta teach women to be teachers. There's just so many rabbis and so many men that are knowledgeable. So I went through a teacher education school called the Marsha for 2 years, and then I took a 3rd year, and I was a certified licensed teacher. Then, of course, the time communities flourished, the baby boomers. So they needed not 1 rabbi, but 2 rabbis. To have 2 rabbis, that's a lot of
What
money.
year was that?
Latter part of, early 1980s. Okay, so I had one of my friends, who passed away, she was so young, brilliant woman. She developed a program called Jewish Family Educators. It's a master's within the Jewish community, so I could be an assistant rabbi without the title. And therefore, you don't have to pay me the $100,000 in the house and the car and the insurance and everything. And most of the time, men took the positions. And even later in life, in the 1990s to 2000, I would go on interviews. I got my ordination in Smecha years later, going through what's known as, ready, wait for it, a computer. I did not go to bricks, mortar, seminaries. I didn't affiliate with the conservative movement because then I'd have to spend a year in Israel. Instead, I worked 6 to 8 years with the Israelis going up and back. So I think it's more than a year, so I got grandfathered in. And then here, the Reform movement, I don't belong to the Reform movement, so I'm an esoteric. I believe in all different phases of Judaism. And I'm a rabbi, meaning I'm a learned teacher. And that's who I am. And I lived in a desert where I thought, I'm just gonna do my artwork. If you go to the Red Cliffs Gallery, you'll see my artwork. My artwork's been in the St. George Art Museum. It's been at Eccles Center. I had a one-woman show for 6 weeks on a Jewish woman's journey in the Eccles Center. And then I also was part of the faculty and in the art department, so I was able to go into the. Yes,
I would love to hear you talk
but I have to get
all
going.
day.
But I need the papers back, and then I have to get going.
Oh, you going to lead us in a closing prayer.
Oh, okay.
I bring you these. Can we keep these, the ones you?
Yeah, the ones, the two, this you could, this paper you could keep. These I want back, the one with all the Hebrew writings, and they said, God's name is. Somebody's paper gave me this, that you can keep. These writings any back. Oh. Oh. Oh, I always say, Hine Matovu Manayim Shevatim Gam Yachad. How wonderful it is to be blessed with brothers and sisters in our community, and to actually learn together in a beautiful day, and learning about Hashem, God, and just being wonderful people and healthy and happy.
Do you teach any other classes on a regular basis?
No, not anymore. So what I do is I do lecture at various, like, I was at the Lutheran Church 2 weeks or whatever, I before I left to go back east. Sorry you got to see my back and side profile, but might have been a bad hair day on that side.